Okay guys, so this is the big one, my Championship 1 to 24 predictions. Let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. I'm very excited to jump into this one today, as well as giving my predictions. I, of course, want to hear what you guys are saying for the upcoming season. How do you think your side's going to do? Who's going to be making up the top 6? And who are the 3 sides that are going to be going down? As always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. If we get it 500 likes on today's video, that would be massively appreciated. Make sure to stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. We've also got the Patreon going down below. The Prediction League is starting back up this week. If you want to get involved in the Patreon exclusive one, you can sign up to that. Loads of fantasy football stuff going on over there as well, and we're also going to be having a Championship table prediction competition over on the Patreon as well, which you can get involved in. But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. So starting out at the bottom of the table, and I feel like this is going to be quite a popular pick for most people, I have gone for Derby County. Now, given their current situation, I think it's going to be a really tough season for them. Now, I am expecting a little bit of movement from Derby in the transfer market between now and the end of the window, in terms of them bringing in the free agents who have been training with them recently. But even given those additions, which I'm anticipating them to make, it's still a really weak looking squad, which is made up of youngsters who showed a few sparks last season, but aren't exactly the ideal candidates to have in a relegation scrap when you're battling for your lives. And the people who they are likely to bring in are sort of people who are looking a little bit more over the hill in their career. You know, people in the mid-30s and things like that. Their best player, Christian Bielik, is injured for the start of the season, and they also have still a really unexperienced manager in Wayne Rooney, who's been thrust into this pretty impossible situation for the upcoming season. So if Derby do manage to do it and survive this season, fair play, because as of recording, I just can't see it. 23rd position. Now this could be a prediction where I am absolutely miles off on, and I'm more than happy to be proven wrong here. But I have gone for Peterborough for the time being, because for me, this upcoming season could go one of two ways for Posh. I'm in no doubt that Darren Ferguson's going to set them up in a similar way to how he did in League One, and they're just going to look to go ahead and attack the league. And no doubt that their attacking aspects of their game is their strengths. They absolutely blew League One away last season with the amount of goals they scored, scoring 83 goals along the season. All those attacking outlets who were there last season have stuck around as well. You know, there was seemingly lots of interest in Clark Harris, but with no concrete bids coming in for him so far, it's looking like he'll be sticking around for the season, which is massive. Sammy Smodics, I'm excited to see in the Championship again. Judge Grant seemed like a bit of shrewd business as well, but I can't help but feel like the other side of it and their defensive aspects could end up being their Achilles heel. Now they have brought in Josh Knight, which I am a fan of, but is he going to be enough to plug up some of the gaps here due to their sort of attacking heavy style of play? Last season in League One they conceded 46 goals, so that is considerably more than both Hull and Blackpool, who they are being promoted alongside. So on average they conceded 1 goal a game in League One. If that trend carries on in the Championship and they regularly ship 2 or 3 goals a game, that could end up being a bit of an issue. They do remind me a little bit of MK Dons when they were promoted in 2014 under Carl Robinson. You know, they came up to the Championship wanting to play their really attacking, heavy style of football. They scored a lot of goals that season, but also shipped a lot as well, and that was ultimately their downfall. If Peterborough managed to perfectly strike the balance this season, then they could be a side to watch out for, but if not, things could go wrong for them. 22nd place, and as my final relegation spot, I've then gone for Huddersfield Town. Now this is a bit of a defining season for Carlos Corberán, because he needs to get this spot on. And to be honest with you, I was a little bit split on Huddersfield in 22nd and the team that I've got in 21st at the moment, and I could still be swayed either way. The sort of pattern of thinking that I was going with in this bottom 3 was 3 sides who I think will ship a lot of goals coming into this next season. Huddersfield last season conceded 71 goals, which was the most in the Championship. They have added to their defensive options this season, and I think that they certainly have more depth in that area. But do they have more quality in that area? I'm not 100% sold on. I like the addition of Matty Pearson as a bit more of like a no-nonsense defender, but whether he'll be a stylistic fit into the sort of, you know, looking to build up from the back and things like that, I'm not so sure. Huddersfield just left themselves really vulnerable to conceding goals last season with their attacking mindset, and unless Corberán can be a little bit more adaptable this time round, that may go against them. Now they could go one of two ways, because Huddersfield could absolutely fly up the league, because we saw albeit in small bursts last season, what Brom was trying to achieve with this Huddersfield squad. You know, getting the fullbacks bombing forward and playing high, looking to have those forwards pressing off the front. Josh Koroma, when he's, you know, back fully fit and firing, can be absolutely fantastic, like we saw last season when he came back from his injury. But apart from Koroma, and, you know, should anything happen to him again, I think that Huddersfield could really struggle in an attacking aspect. I'm not sure where those other goals are going to come from. I'm not particularly sold on the addition of Jordan Rhodes. You know, Huddersfield got quite a bit of their business done early on into the window, where they have added to the depth of the squad, like I said, but has that starting 11 improved? For me, I'm not sure. 21st place and just avoiding relegation, I've then gone for Hull City, the champions of League One from last season. Now, Hull are in a bit of a sticky situation in terms of the embargo that they're currently under, but despite that, they've actually done some savvy business in this window so far, being able to pick people up on both free transfers and loan deals. We've spoken about Nathan Baxter quite a bit on the channel so far. His arrival from Chelsea, I think, will be only an added benefit into their backline. I think he'll prove himself to be a really good goalkeeper in the Championship this season. Dishon Bernard and Ryan Longman, two really nice pickups as well. And then they've also brought in the likes of Andy Cannon, George Moncur and Randall Williams. I think the majority of their goals this season are probably going to come from those wide areas, from Lewis Potter and from Malik Wilkes as well, who seriously impressed in League One last season. The only sort of area where I'm uneasy about Hull at the moment is probably that striker option. You know, will McGuinness or Eves cut it at this level? I'm not sure. In 20th place, and having quite the fall off from last season, I've then gone for Blackburn Rovers, where there's still a bit of uncertainty about the team that they're going to be coming into this next season with. The Adam Armstrong situation is very much up in the air at the moment. If I had to put money on it right now, I'd say he's probably more likely to leave when one of those Premier League clubs does go in with a proper concrete move for him. And obviously Blackburn are left in a bit of a tricky situation there, where they might be scrambling around looking for his replacement later on into the window. And of course we all know about that 40% sell-on clause that Newcastle have in his contract. But regardless of the Armstrong situation, there just seems to be this feeling of stagnation around Ewood Park at the moment. I think that the evidence of that was very much there in the second half of last season. They went on a couple of really bad runs of form. From February to April, they went on a run where they won one match in 15. You know, that's relegation form right there. And they've also lost a fair few of their sort of experienced heads that were in that dressing room from last season. You know, Lewis Holtby, Stuart Downing, Elliot Bennett, Corey Evans and Amari Bell have all departed, and so far there have been no additions into that squad. Taking into consideration the loanees that are no longer there as well, and suddenly they're looking a little bit thin on numbers, Blackburn. Now obviously they could do quite a bit of business between now and the end of the window, and you know, this prediction could be proven completely wrong, but I can only go off the evidence that we're dealing with at the moment, and at this point in time I can't help but feel like they might end up struggling. One of the positives going into this new season though is Ben Brereton, or Ben Brereton Diaz as we should now call him. I think that he could be in for a good season, especially if Armstrong does leave and he is their main man going forward. He's looked sharp in pre-season so far, and obviously he's coming off that Copa America campaign with Chile as well. There's a few other youngsters that Blackburn have got in their ranks at the moment who I am going to be keeping a keen eye out for, but other than that, I'm a little bit uneasy with them. Coming in 19th place, and there's a slight fall off from their 16th place finish last time around, I've then gone for Coventry. I can't help but feel like, looking at their team on paper now compared to the end of last season, it's slightly weaker in a couple of areas which could hinder them. Obviously the big one is Ostergaard, who was great for them in their backline last season. Matty James in midfield as well, and Sam McCallum, although I think they have that McCallum replacement lined up now. They have got deals done for Ben Sheaf and Victor Gyökeres, who were on loan there last season, but the one I'm most interested to see how he gets on is Martin Waghorn, because he was really quite disappointing for Derby last time around, but there is still a player in there, and if they do go with that sort of forward three dynamic, he could be a nice little fit into that. So yeah, I have gone for a slight drop off from last season for Coventry, but I still think they'll be fine in terms of Championship survival. Coming in 18th place, and as the best of the three promoted sides, I have then gone for Blackpool. Now, being promoted from League One to the Championship is, for me, mostly about style of play and how that can be translated to the level above, and I can't help but feel like Blackpool could potentially be the best suited to have that step up in a level. I'm mostly obviously talking about the work they do off the ball and their defensive record in League One last season, which was excellent. They have the best defensive record out of each of the three sides who were promoted. Chris Maxwell kept a bunch of clean sheets last season, and though they no longer have Daniel Ballard, they have looked to strengthen that area quite significantly over this window so far. The additions of Reece James and Callum Connolly particularly, I think, are really nice additions to that squad. What could be their potential undoing though is goals being scored, you know, should anything happen to Jerry Yates. I know he's just signed the contract, but should he pick up an injury or something like that? Where else are the goals going to come from this Blackpool side? Are they going to have enough goals coming in from midfield to support that? Obviously, they brought in Tyrese John-Jules on loan from Arsenal for this season, who will look to supplement the goals that Yates is scoring for the season. But I think they've got a decent project that's going there at the moment under Neil Critchley, and as much as I hate to admit it as a North End fan, I think they'll be alright this season. And coming in 17th place, speaking of North End, I have then gone for Preston, the team that I support. This would be our lowest finish in the Championship since we've been back up, promoted in 2014. And to be honest with you, it's probably the least optimistic that I've been from a North End fan's point of view coming into a new season. I don't think that the transfers that we made over this window have given fans any real sense of optimism for what could potentially happen. And I think we're all sort of expecting to be maybe lower mid-table, potentially dragged into something dangerous should any of our key players pick up some injuries this season. Now, the strength to this side, should we bring Daniel Iverson in, I think we can be quite stingy at the back. You know, McAvoy looks like he'll be going with this 5-3-2 system. We've got support from midfield. I think that, you know, Whiteman and Ledton's a good double pivot, and then you add someone in there like a Daniel Johnson if he manages to recapture his form, Brad Potts, Alan Brown, and we're looking alright in that area. Defence, I'm a little bit sort of hit and miss on. We've got bodies in that area, and the system that we play should mean that we keep things tight at the back, but we definitely have mistakes in us there. Our biggest problem this season though is undoubtedly going to be scoring goals. I just can't see where a consistent goal flow is going to come from this North End squad, which is a bit of a worry. You know, Ched Evans proved himself to be useful at this level last time around, although I don't see him being prolific. I think he's going to be someone who someone else is going to look to play off. You know, he's a really good hold up and target man who will chip him with the goals, but he needs someone supporting him alongside, and at the moment, you know, I'm not completely sold on any of Scott Sinclair, Shonny Maguire, Emile Rees, Tom Barkus, and any of those supporting players that are going to be playing up there this season. I'd be surprised if any of them hit double figures, to be honest with you. I am hopeful that we're still going to be in the market for a striker, and that could make all the difference to our season, but at the moment I'm not holding my breath when it comes to that. But should we get Daniel Iverson in, I'm saying around 17th for Preston. Coming in 16th place, I've then gone for Bristol City. Now, quite a bit of work still needs to be done on this Bristol City squad. Statistically, last season, they were probably one of the worst sides in the league. They took the fewest amounts of shots of any Championship club last season. I think that goals could once again be a bit of an undoing for this Bristol City side heading into next season. They've let go of a lot of bodies in this transfer window so far, and they've been a little bit slower off the mark in terms of incomings. Rob Atkinson, I think, will be a really nice addition, and I think that him next to Thomas Callas with Daniel Bentley behind is potentially, you know, one of the best like defensive triangles in the league. I think that each of them will be fantastic for Bristol City, and that's why I'm sort of happy to leave them around 16th in the league. But going further afield of that, you know, further up the pitch, that's when I think this side could struggle a little bit in terms of creativity and getting shots off. Now, they had an abundance of injuries last season, and so I am banking on, you know, some of those players coming back into the squad this season and sort of hitting the ground running. But Nigel Pearson very much still has his work cut out for himself, I think, next season. Next up, and then 15th in my table, I've then gone for Birmingham. Now, when I'm ever placing Birmingham in the league predictions table, I'm always a little bit cautious not to go too optimistic with them, because I've had this sort of feeling with Birmingham that, alright, this is going to click now for them. In a couple seasons gone by, you know, I remember thinking at the start of last season, oh, Karanka really is building something here, and it completely went off a cliff as the season went on. With Bowyer, it does feel a little bit different. You know, we saw their form towards the end of last season, how he was able to come in, sort of galvanise that squad and get everyone playing the right way and, you know, sort of all in it together, having that sort of spirit about them. I like some of the business that they've done in this window as well. They've been pretty savvy, like most other Championship clubs, with picking up free agents and using the loan market as well. You know, Ryan Woods and Chukwuemeka have come in on loan deals. They got the likes of Taith Chong, Dion Sanderson as well. So yeah, for Birmingham, I'm going to go for a steady 15th placed finish season this time around. Coming in 14th place, I've then gone for Reading, which is quite the drop off from their 7th place finish last season, although I still feel like 14th is me being fairly kind to Reading given their current situation at the club. I feel like the quality that's still left in that 11 will be enough to get them in and around this region of the table, but should anything else happen in terms of a big departure or an injury to a key player, Reading could easily drop lower down than this. Their squad at the moment is undoubtedly weaker than it was this time last season. You know, they've lost Elise, they've lost Omar Richards, they're under a transfer embargo, so more limited in what they can do in terms of bringing players in at the moment. And added on to that, their form towards the end of last season really wasn't great. You know, they only won one of their last 11 championship matches last season. Everyone's form seemed to have a bit of a natural drop-off. You know, Lucas Jow was prolific in the first half of the season, but just wasn't the same in the second. I think that Paunovic is going to have a much tougher season this time around with this Reading squad. I think they've got enough to avoid any sort of relegation troubles, but I can't see them mixing it with the top 6 this time around. Coming in 13th place, I've then gone for Nottingham Forest. Now, under Chris Hughton, I'm expecting them to be stable at the back once again. I think they'll be quite a rigid side to come up against, and I don't think they'll ship all too many goals. Ethan Horvath coming in as a bit of cover to that goalkeeper position as well will also push Bryce Samba, so we may see the best version of him going forward into this season as well. But I can't help but feel like there's still going to be a bit of a lack of goals in that side to really push them onto the top 6, which is where Forest fans are ultimately hoping their side will be able to compete. Last season they only scored 37 goals in the Championship, so they averaged less than a goal a game, and because of their limited incomings in that area, I'm not sure I can see that changing all too much this season. Brennan Johnson is the one player who could be that spark in the final third for them. But their problem last season was whoever played up front was just so isolated, you know, whether it was Graben or Taylor. Unless something significantly changes with Forest in the final third, then I just don't see them having the firepower to really push forward into those sort of top 6 places. But otherwise, I think that their defensive aspects to their game will see them having a comfortable mid-table finish. Coming in 12th place and slap bang in the middle of the table, I've then gone for Swansea City, who've recently appointed Russell Martin as their new manager. Really excited to see what he can do with this group of players. It'll be quite the contrast from Cooper Ball, but obviously Cooper Ball has been so effective for Swansea over the last couple of years as he's managed to deliver 2 successive playoff campaigns. I don't see them being as successful this time around, primarily because the squad is significantly weaker. But I think that this transition into a new style of football could serve them well long term. The additions that they've brought in so far are all fairly unproven at this level in Liam Walsh, Kyle Joseph and Joel Perreault. Depth is certainly an issue in some positions, but even with the group of players that they're still left with, I think they'll be alright for a mid-table finish. And hey, if they do bring in some high quality loan players, they could be pushing for the top 6, who knows. Coming in 11th place, I've then gone for Barnsley. Now, Barnsley are a bit of a wild card coming into this season. I've had some people who I've seen predicting them to finish in 2nd place, some people playoff, some people in a relegation battle. I've gone a little bit middle of the road for Barnsley this time around under Marcus Schopp. There is expected to be a stylistic difference to Barnsley this season. I don't think that anyone will be like Valorant Ismail anytime soon, but it's also worth noting, you know, some of the players who have left. Alex Moat is a massive departure. Daryl DK, who was there in the second half of last season, is no longer there. But it's still a young group of players who's only going to go on and continue progressing as a squad, despite some of those, you know, players who they have lost. George Benson, who arrives from Burnley, I think is a nice looking addition into that midfield. Callum Stiles particularly is a player who I think has got such a high ceiling, who's only going to go on and get better and more influential in this Barnsley side this season. And I think they've got enough about them to be one of those sort of top half sides, albeit maybe not as much about them to be a top 6 side this time around. Let me know what you guys think about that. Coming in 10th place, I've then gone for Luton Town, so an improvement on their finish from last season. A top 10 finish would represent really quite a good season, I think, for Luton, who are going to continue progressing under Nathan Jones. Now, it's been quite a busy transfer window for them so far, and I like quite a few of the deals which they've managed to get over the line. Now, one of the sticking points with Luton last season in a couple of those tight matches that they were involved with was maybe a lack of goals at times. You know, they scored 41 last season, so were one of the sides who averaged less than a goal a game. But I like some of the additions that they've made to this side in the final third, who could make a difference in some of those tight matches next season, turning some of those draws into wins. Admiral Musgrave comes in, Fred Onyedinma, Carlos Mendes Gomez as well, who's quite an exciting one, who showed, I think, a couple of flashes in pre-season so far. And from a defensive aspect, they've added the likes of Amari Bell, Reece Burke, Alan Campbell comes in, and then a couple of experienced heads in the likes of Cameron Jerome and Henry Lansbury. I think Luton are a football club in general who has a bit of good momentum about them at the moment, and under Nathan Jones, who I really rate as a coach, approach there, I think they're going to improve this season. Now from this point onwards, I think that any of these teams could form a bit of a top 6 challenge going into this next season. In 9th place, I've gone for Cardiff. Under McCarthy, I'm expecting them to be resilient once again, a tough side to beat, who will grind out results as the season goes on. I like some of the business that they've done so far, although I don't think that their starting 11 has been ridiculously improved on or anything like that. They have added a bit more squad depth into a couple of the positions that it was needed. James Collins comes in after a couple of good seasons with Luton in the Championship to add another option up front alongside Kiefer Moore. Ryan Giles I quite like the look of. A couple times last season he comes in on a loan deal. And overall I think they'll be a tough side to beat. Do they have the sort of tactical flexibility to be mixing it with the top 6 and make that final jump into it next season under McCarthy? I'm not sure. Time will tell on that front. Obviously they no longer have Harry Wilson, who could potentially have been that sort of difference maker for them last season. But at the end of the day, it's a good group of players there and expect them to be comfortably top half. Coming in 8th place, I then have Stoke City. Now Stoke have been that side who have made a lot of people look quite silly in years gone by. At the start of every season, they seem to be a top 6 challenger, and for the last 3 years in a row, they finished in the bottom half of the Championship. Michael O'Neill does seem to be building something at Stoke at the moment, albeit there were quite a few frustrating performances, especially in the second half of the season. I'm basing a lot of this prediction off Tyrese Campbell coming back into the starting 11 and just hitting the ground running after his injury, because from a goal output point of view, he was a massive miss for them last season. But other than Campbell, I like a bit of the business that they've done in this window so far. Mario Varancic I think was a really shrewd addition on a free transfer if he's able to get regular minutes there next season. Ben Wilmot's a brilliant replacement for the departing Nathan Collins, and they've also trimmed a bit off the wage bill as well in terms of the deadwood. They have some other upcoming youngsters who I'm excited to see progress as this year goes on, and I am backing this to be their best of their 4 seasons back down in the Championship so far. If it's not at least top half this season, serious questions need to be asked. And then in 7th place, and just missing out on the top 6, I have then gone for Millwall. Now last season I did back Millwall to finish in 6th place. In the end they finished just a little bit short of that. But listen, under Gary Rowett, it's a team who has got serious defensive structure to it. Bartosz Bilkowski will be right up there in terms of the race for the Golden Glove once again this season. They've improved their backline with the introduction of Daniel Ballard coming on loan for this season from Arsenal. Scott Malone, that deal now has been turned into a permanent. Judge Long comes in as a backup option to Bilkowski. They've obviously lost Ryan Woods, but they brought in George Saville, which I think is a nice addition. But the big one for Millwall this season, and the player who could be the difference maker or not, is Benik Afobe. You know, this time last season, the Millwall fans sort of had all their hopes pinned on Troy Parrott. In the end, that move didn't work out whatsoever. There's a similar feeling about Afobe this time around, because last year, it really felt like all they were missing was a prolific goal scorer. You know, they have the defensive structure about them, they have a good midfield. Goals are just the issue for them. You know, Jed Wallace will pop up with, you know, double figures from the wing or whatever, but he needs that assistance from somewhere. Afobe's had quite a few shaky years himself, but has done it in the past. I think Millwall will go very close this year, but I've got them just falling short. So moving on into my top 6, coming in 6th place and making it into the playoffs, I have then gone for Middlesbrough. Do not write off Neil Warnock and the project and the team he's currently building at Middlesbrough. I like a lot of the business that they've done so far in this transfer window, and I'm not going to lie, a bit of this prediction is currently based off the players that they're being linked to and expected to sign, but should these deals get over the line, I think that Middlesbrough could be quite an exciting package coming into this new season. We all expect them to be defensively quite sound. I think they'll be better at the back this season actually, because they no longer have Marcus Bettinelli, whose save percentage was really poor last season. They replaced him with Joe Lumley, and while he might not be like an elite keeper at this level, I think it's an improvement on Bettinelli. They've got 2 of the best fullbacks in the league, despite Donald Fisher missing for the majority of the season in Anthony Dijksteel and Mark Bowler. Uche Pizu I think could turn out to be a perfect Neil Warnock striker, maybe not in terms of a goal return, but for bringing others into play and what he actually offers for them up front. They're currently being linked with a move for Rodrigo Munoz as well, who is also being linked with a move to Fulham. But their most exciting deal being for Martin Peiro. Now this one hasn't been announced officially as of recording, but is expected to get over the line, and he could turn out to be just the missing piece of the puzzle, you know, a creative midfielder in what is already a functioning Borough side who can be brilliant defensively. I like some of the options that they've got out wide, although they probably need to add another one. Paddy McNair can be an absolute enforcer from midfield as well. I like what this Borough squad is building towards, and I feel like this could be a season when they make that jump into the top 6. Coming in 5th place, I have then gone for QPR. I have a good feeling about them this season. They finished last season in absolutely terrific form, winning 9 of their last 14 matches. Mark Warburton seems to have struck a perfect balance with this squad at the moment. With QPR squads in years gone by, there was always that sort of attacking focus, but the defensive side to their game was always a little bit unsolved. I feel like that's been resolved now. They've got one of the best goalkeepers in the league in Sene Dieng. The setup they've got ahead of him is also really strong. We saw how good Rob Dickie was last year. I think he's only going to go on and get better this season with the players he's got around him to supplement him as well, you know, in the likes of Jordi Device, Johan Barber. They brought in Sam McCallum as another option as that left wing back. Odebajo's come in, who, to be honest with you, I've not been a massive fan of over the last couple of years, but Odebajo has played his best football of his career probably under Mark Warburton at Brentford, and the signs have been there for him in pre-season that he could get back to that level. In midfield, I think they're looking really strong, particularly after the signing of Stefan Johansson, who was an absolute Rolls Royce for them in that midfield last time around. And then their options going forward, you know, at the start of last season, Lyndon Dykes, I really wasn't sold on, but he finished last season in terrific form. He's competing with Charlie Austin up front. The players who they got to play off the striker are quite exciting as well, in the likes of your Chairs and Willocks. I think there's a lot to like about this QPR side coming into this next season, and barring any sort of like crazy injury crisis or something like that, I'm backing them for the top 6. Coming in 4th, I have then gone for Bournemouth. Now, it's a bit of an interesting pick really, because this is more so about the introduction of Scott Parker and the new style of play which we're expecting to be implemented at Bournemouth coming into this next season, which I think could serve them really well, because realistically their starting 11 right now is probably weaker than it was this time last season. You know, they're no longer with Begovic in goal, and Danjuma is probably more likely to leave than he is stay at this point in time. Obviously anything can happen, but I think most people are expecting Danjuma probably to have gone by the end of the transfer window. But regardless of that, Scott Parker will look to integrate this possession brand of football which worked for him at Fulham. You know, he got them promoted via the playoffs. Last season for Bournemouth, it really felt like some of the managerial choices let them down in a few aspects, and they did have a few players who perhaps underperformed in regards to what they're capable of doing at this level. David Brooks is one particular player who I think could be absolutely massive for Bournemouth this next season. If he manages to stay injury free, I don't think that we saw the levels that he could have hit from last season. I think he could do that this time around. You guys know my love for Ben Pearson will never end. They've got one of the best midfielders in the league in that aspect, and they've still got Lerma to play alongside him as well. Cook to come back from his injury, and I think that given what they're up against in terms of the rest of the Championship and the quality that's on show, it will be a very disappointing season if they didn't finish in the top 6. Coming in 3rd place and then just missing out on the top 2, I have gone for Sheffield United. Now, the business has been slow in terms of incomings. We've not seen anything so far from Sheffield United, but Jukanovic is here to breathe new ideas into this squad, and it's a group of players who have a bit of a point to prove coming into this new season, especially their strikers, you know, the likes of Mousset, McBurney and Brewster. They could all thrive at Championship level, but they need to prove that point and sort of prove their worth for the money that was outlaid on each of them. There are some big question marks hanging over a couple of their big players in terms of will they stay or go, the likes of Aaron Ramsdale and Sander Berg, and should those two leave, they will need to be adequately replaced. You know, looking into their midfield, it probably is an area which could do with a bit of touching up. I just look at that team on paper and think, despite everything that went wrong for them last season in the Championship, it's a top group of players with a top manager. Surely that has to count for something. I'm putting them in 3rd. Coming in 2nd place, I have then gone for West Brom under the management of Valérien Ismaël. Now, it remains to be seen whether West Brom will be as crazy as Barnsley were last season in terms of their style of play, but once again, looking at the quality of the potential starting 11 here, West Brom's starting 11 blows most other Championship teams out the water for me. Regardless of what happens with the Pereira situation, you know, it's probably more likely that he does end up leaving, but if not, I mean, that's even more reason to think West Brom are going to go up. But regardless of Pereira staying or not, the potential front 3 coming into this season, being Colin Grant, Callum Robinson and Grady Diangana, is ridiculous talent for this level. I know that Colin Grant hasn't showed it in a West Brom shirt so far, but he has done it at Championship level with Huddersfield in the past. And if he does get, you know, sharp, fit and firing again with Robinson and Diangana playing alongside him, they could all be prolific. The addition of Alex Mowatt into that midfield looks a really sensible bit of business as well. You know, P alongside someone like a Livermore, Soys maybe if he can recapture his form, and then the addition of Matt Clark who comes in to bolster their options at the back as well. It also looks as if Sam Johnson could potentially stay, which would be absolutely massive if he does, because I mean, right there, you got the best goalkeeper in the league. The two fullbacks, Townsend and Furlong, could absolutely thrive under this new style of play as well. And although it's such a change from what they've been doing recently, the strength of the 11 gets them through this season. Second place for West Brom for me. Which of course means coming in first place for me and winning the championship is Fulham. I think by far and away at this point in time they probably are the front runners in terms of the favourites for promotion. I would say that I'm much more confident this time around in backing a Fulham promotion than I was when they were last in the championship. I think I did predict them to finish third that time, but this time around the quality of the 11, the manager that they have, I know there's, you know, a few people who still have their reservations about Marco Silva, and that's fair enough, but I can't help but feel like he's a perfect fit to this Fulham side and the strengths that they have within their starting 11. In terms of attacking talent, they pretty much blow everyone else in the championship out the water, don't they? It looks like Mitrovic is going to be sticking around after, you know, if Marco Silva can put his arm around him after him and Parker didn't really work out towards the end. Off the flanks, you've then got the likes of the Ivan Cavalleros, the Harry Wilsons, who's just come in, Knockout as an option off the bench. Into midfield, the likes of the Bobby Reeds, the Tom Kearneys, the Harrison Reeds and Guisa, who's still there. They could even be bringing in Matt Grimes. At the back, they've got a plethora of options, and they have two of the best goalkeepers in the league probably in Gazaniga and Marek Rodak. There's just way too much quality here for Fulham not to be finishing in the top two. I think they'll score an absolute bucket full of goals coming into this next season. Marco Silva tends to favour those sort of attacking players as well. And from the outside looking into this team at the moment, it seems like they tick pretty much every box. Like, I can't really target anywhere in that team and think, oh, that's going to be a massive flaw in their season. I think they're just looking great. But guys, as you can see to the side of me, those are my championship predictions for the upcoming season, my 1 to 24. If I then had to call a playoff winner from those sides who I have predicted to finish in the top 6, I'm going to go with QPR. You know, they tend to like a bit of a playoff run, don't they? And pop up with a moment. I know that Sheffield United haven't exactly had the best history with games in the playoffs in years gone by either. So yeah, I'll go QPR out of all of them. But that's what I'm saying for this upcoming season. Which of my picks do you agree with, and which do you think are going to be quite some way off come the end of the season? I always like to stand by these sort of things, so we will be reacting to this video come the end of the season to see how many I was right with and how many I was wrong with. But do get all your thoughts in the comments down below and let me know what you think of this upcoming championship season. Apart from that though guys, that will wrap it up for today's video. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for a bit of regular championship content. Apart from that, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.